Good evening and welcome to tonight's very inspiring edition of What's Your Story? You know I'm not exaggerating because, hey, we have walked this journey a long time. And tonight's story is, in fact, let me just put it to you this way. You know how we're used to introducing, this is the person, this is who they are, what they do. So I've been thinking about how do I introduce this guest because, he's the only way to say is he's a polymath, okay? Like the literal meaning of polymath. That's the only way to describe him. His name is Mr. I flouted that because he said, just don't call me Mr., but hey, I can't help it. So he's Harry Christian Henry. Good, well, Mr. of course, but he said the Mr. is the dad's. And he's basically amassed a wealth of knowledge and skill set, expertise in different areas. Right now, I think what's shouting in his life a lot is sustainability, but he's also an international trainer, coach, moderator. So if you have those events, he's a guy for you. He's also has a company, Empower Motion. We'll get to know what that is about. But over and above all of these glorious titles, he's obviously doubled in artpreneurship, entrepreneurship, now helping companies excel. So high performance companies, building companies, etc. He's come to Nairobi. I just learned this now, and I know this intro is so long, but hey, you know me. 35 times. So what does he come to do in Nairobi and different parts of Africa? Harry Christian Henry, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to have you. Great to be here.
Karibu sana.
Asante sana.
So do you know Swahili? Do you want us to do this in Swahili?
I really don't.
Okay.
I am learning though. I am studying
Okay.
hard. It is important.
Okay.
It builds
Oh.
rapport differently. So.
Oh, you're learning Swahili?
I'm not fast enough, but I am, and I have ambition to speak Swahili fluently one day, and not just because it's now the Pan-African language, but also because it is a beautiful language. It's the language of East Africa where I feel most at home. So.
Right. Oh, yeah. So I was going through your Instagram, and as much as we're
see.
we are connected on LinkedIn, but I was going through your Instagram and I saw you describe Nairobi as your favorite city.
Yes, in many ways.
How? Just help us.
Well, I mean, the natural beauty, right? So this is the only city where I can drive to teach at university in Nazarene and Kajiado County. And yesterday I had a baboon in the parking lot. I saw a pumba, I saw a warthog by the side of the road. And so where else do you have a capital city that is so vibrant in the arts, in culture, in technology as well? And at the same time, you're only half an hour away from an elephant, right? So it's brilliant. I don't think people appreciate that enough.
Yeah. Wow, it's good to know. You see, when we live here, you don't see it because I guess we're used to it. But it's good to hear someone's perspective. And 35 times, we'll come there. So growing up, you know how we're done with high school. So for those fortunate enough to go to university.
Yeah.
So they do that, and then after that, everybody wonders, okay, so what do I do? What do I want to do with my life? So for you, what was that starting point?
I still don't know what I want to do in my life. I mean, I think that's one important thing, and I think that the world will never again change as slowly as it does today, as the cliche goes. So I think the timelines in which we have to evolve and do something differently are ever accelerating.
Yes.
Right? So I'm not 120 years old, and most of the people that I hire now have degrees that didn't exist when I studied. Right? So masters in digital marketing or sustainability.
Yes.
So it's moving quickly, and
Right.
I think your job has changed so much.
Yeah.
I'm sure in the
Yeah.
last 10 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, but my journey really started. I mean, I have to go back as far as my birth. So
Okay.
I'm from Madagascar originally, and unfortunately my mother passed away when I was born. So I grew up in the Nordics mostly, and I was one of the very few brown children at that time. So I was the only one in the school. I was the only one in the city at the time. I never saw people of color, and so there was a degree of motivation in that, of course, because there are difficulties inherent in being so different to everyone else. And so my entrepreneurial journey started at roughly 6 years old. So I started drawing pictures and selling them door to door because I had no pocket money, and so I wanted to have some of the things that the other kids had, and so I started selling, and I figured out that I thought I knew what the market wanted. The market was housewives, and so I thought they wanted pictures of things in the house. Really, I was just small and cute, so they bought whatever I brought. So I spent way too much time engineering my product, which was a picture of kitchen utensils. And then later, I started importing gummy bears, so sweets from Germany. My grandmother sent them over. And I opened the pack, and I turned one pack into 20 packs, and then I went out and I sold them like a lemonade stand. So that's really where my journey started, and the skill set has really stayed the same. So the ability to take rejection and the ability to connect and influence. But then what I've done, I've been asked at every turn, what do you want to do when you grow up? And it's a really terrible question in a way. And so I still don't know. I know what my next phase is, what my next 5 years, my next season is, absolutely. It has a strong connection to East Africa. But I don't know what's the, the next 15 years.
But that time when you finished high school, what was...
Yeah, I'm not answering your question, am I? So when I finished high school, I had this brief phase where I wanted to be in a boy band. I just wanted to be famous, and so that was not great. So that. Yeah, bar the fact that I can't actually sing, so that is problematic. So people pay me to sing because they pay me to stop to sing when I sing. So that wasn't going to work. And so I studied something. So I studied business, then economics, then international relations, and I couldn't decide. But I also studied drama on the side, and I started a dance business after school. So I was studying business during the day, and then by night I had my dance business.
So you are a dancer?
I am a poor dancer, and that's why I have a business. So I started teaching, and the method that I taught became my method of teaching. But then soon my pupils were better than me, so I started hiring them. And so we grew and grew until we were 15 countries. And the best dancers in my company were were Luos, were from Kenya. And they came and they trained in Arusha in Tanzania. And so that was my first connection with the region. I had, there's such a wealth of arts talent here. I mean, you've got Kisumu is an absolute hub of dance skill, Bagamoyo on the Tanzanian side. And so the dancers came. Some of them now live in really good professional positions in the rest of Europe, in Berlin, in Finland. And mostly my mission was to take dancing back into schools, because even in Europe, dance classes had kind of disappeared. It was sort of the fancy of the rich. It was too expensive for most. And so I started building a company that brought dancing back into the school curriculum so that the schools would have access to studio level dancing. Yeah. And one thing led to another, and then there were more and more people, and we started doing shows. And the first show, people said, we are crazy. No one's going to come and watch children dance with some professionals. And 325 people came, and that was 25 more than were allowed in the room. And so we got in trouble. Wow. And then I booked a space with 600 people. And people said, you're crazy. No one's going to come. No one wants to see kids dance. And 600 people came. And then it was 1,243. And then that was a national record at the time. And then it was 1,747. And I will always remember these numbers. And the real thing here was the professional dancers will always attract a crowd, right? So a big show will always attract someone. But when the kids go on stage, they will bring grandma and granddad and mommy and daddy. Yeah. So I always knew if I put 100 kids on stage, 400 people will come. Right. And so that was the business model and the idea. And then we incentivized, right? So we told the kids, look, there are special hoodies, there are special outfits that you can only have. You can't buy them, because we didn't want to have the thing where the wealthy children have those clothes and the others can't. And we said, you can't buy them. The only way you can get them is if you sell 25 tickets. And the kids went out and went to friends and schools. And so we filled the room, and they had their apparel, which, by the way, was also made here in the region. So we took a traditional, I think you guys call it kitenge. Yeah. On the Tanzanian side, we call it kanga. Mm-hmm. And so we had a partner in the dancers there who took fantastic kangas from the mamas in the markets and chose them and embedded them into the hoodies, took the front out and replaced it with kanga, and stitched the name of the children on the back. And so we had real like giveaways that are coveted. People collected them really. And so that was the first business that ran. And as part of that, so my aspiration became clearer and clearer that really entrepreneurship is for me. Yeah. It's for me.
So let me take you back a bit to you talked about losing your mom at birth. So you never got to know her. No. Okay.
In full fairness, I've always had a very nice family. So my father married, for what is for all effects my mother, who is from Finland, and she had 3 more children. So I have always had 3 siblings, and I've never when people, as a child, I got very, very upset, very emotional when people said, but they're your half brothers and sisters, because they look slightly different, because I look Malagasy. And I was always very upset. That really upset me, because to me they were my everything. They're my siblings, and they still are. Like they'll be watching this, and I love no one more in this world, really. And so I didn't have a broken childhood at all. I had a fantastic childhood, but with this constant conflict of, or not constant, but this identity crisis that starts happening in every young person when you look very different. And when the expectations on you are different, and when society doesn't quite know how to deal with you. So, for example, with my Malagasy genes, as a child, I'm skinny. We all are.
Okay.
But that's not necessarily true in Northern Europe. And so I was fed cake in the school to fatten me up. And I had so many little things like that where I was just sort of singled out because I was slightly different. All the way to when I was looking for a job for the first time in 2006, I had good degrees from university. I wrote 127 applications. I got 0 responses. And in the moment where slightly emotional there, but the moment I denied my birthright, my name, Harry Henry is a Malagasy name, and started using my middle name, and I started being called, I called myself Christian Henry instead, implying Christianity, right? Implying someone Western. The moment I changed the name, I changed nothing else. 50% of companies started replying. I ended up hiring with a company who had rejected me without even so much more as a line before. The only thing that had changed was the name, right? And so that difficulty, I think the identity difficulty that came over time, and that a child, a young man, and then someone who's trying to find employment has to deal with, is a defining factor. But at the same time, I have to be very clear about the fact that I've had a fantastic family at all times.
Yeah.
I've always had a mother in my mind. In fact, I've had 2 in a way, and so I never wanted for anything from my family, who did their best to protect me from these kind of outside forces.
Right. Wow. We just think of racism like what applying to us, black people, anywhere we go. So I would never imagine that because when you say you're brown, over here we're like, no.
But that is so true, right?
Yeah.
Because again, there's all kinds of racism all the time. And I don't want to dwell on it too much, because I think everyone has their cross to bear. So if you're short, or if you're bald, or if you're fat, or everyone gets their fair share of trouble. Most societies in the world, women have it harder than men in many instances. But for me, the funny thing is, I was actually called the N-word and considered black in Finland, back in the north, right?
Yeah.
And so then here, when I come to Tanzania, people ask me if I'm Chinese. So I'm like, which one am I, right?
Yeah.
So black to some. Kenny, I hear I'm white a lot, especially when the weather's like this and I don't tan. And then I'm also Chinese sometimes. So I'm like, it's just we are all from somewhere, I guess.
So you're unshakable. So you're in that space in your life where you've understood, all of it, whatever it is you want to call me, that's okay. But at least you know who you are.
I don't think none of that stings like this. It's
No.
been 10 years since those things stung. Like even outright racism, I don't.
No. Okay. Wow. So, art school, 15 countries. So you expanded. Why'd you stop? And you can't dance, so I can't still wrap my head around it. Like, what are you doing with an art school and you can't dance?
So I can move a little bit, but not like they can, right? So it was an interesting thing. It started like, I think many companies start, like you see a problem that you want to fix, and you go after the problem, and you look at what can I do as a creative, as an entrepreneur. And so for me, there were 2 problems in the arts market in Finland, or in the Nordics at the time where we started. One was that dance classes were way too expensive. So they were single classes were around $25, and this is years ago, right? And so they were anywhere between, in dollars, they would have been anywhere between 15 and 25.
Okay.
And the research showed that any parent can afford a hobby for a child if it's around $8. So it was 2 to 3 times too expensive for everyone.
Yeah.
So we looked at that. And then the other thing we saw was that artists are underpaid everywhere. not all artists, but most, and they are underemployed in the afternoons. So if you're a professional dancer or you teach in a studio, that happens in the evening. So in the afternoon, you have nothing. So I said, okay, the biggest cost factor in a dance class, there's two. One is the studio hire and the other one's the teacher. We can't cut the teacher, so we need to cut the studio. So we called 700 schools and we said, you give us your space and we're going to cut out the studio space cost and you're going to have half-price dance classes. Wow. And many, many difficulties. We got sued by the Ministry of Education and whatnot, but the concept worked. And the artists were happy because they could teach these classes before they taught in studios at a fair salary. And the kids were happy because they could go straight after school, right? So it's an afternoon activity. And so that was the starting point. And that just kept growing. And for me personally, there were a number of things why that didn't work for me anymore. So dance team still exists, right? Yeah. So I still have my colleagues in Switzerland and Germany. But first of all, there's this whole thing about the average age of a dance group employee stays constant. Which is around 22 to 25. Okay. My age doesn't stay constant. so you're kind of staying in this cycle forever. And then the other thing was this, we were really hit by COVID. So we lost 95% of revenue in the first lockdown. And we had 65 employees or people finding employment through us. Not everyone's full-time, obviously, in this kind of business. And then we had 2. And so it was a harsh lesson in what society values. So the pubs opened. Yeah. And at one stage, the law said I can rent the National Stadium and I'm allowed to put 6 people in it. But I can go to a restaurant with 150 people because the artists never cause trouble, right? The artists are quiet, they're gentle souls, they want to create. So they don't go out in the street and burn cars. So the mob needs beer. The artists suffer, right? So this was that experience. So that was then. Yeah. But also I saw that I have a much wider. I need to reach a wider audience, and so I'm a tech entrepreneur now with a strong sustainability twang to it. So I coach and teach around sustainability. Right. I engage here in Nairobi. I engage with sustainability entrepreneurs. So I've just met a couple wonderful people, clothing out of recycled plastics, hydroponics, sustainable farming, many. This is such an interesting region of the world at the moment. There's so much about sustainability that Kenya has to teach the rest of the world.
Yeah. So let's talk about your work as an international moderator, speaker, coach. How did you get into that?
So even that has its origins in the arts for me, right? And that's why I keep abreast. Yeah, I keep abreast of arts development. So last time I was here, when we were on TV, we talked about why Nigerian music is so strong and what would need to happen so that Kenyan music would get more of a foot into the world market of music, and that's also, so my first gigs I was moderating dance battles and awards galas and things like that, and I massively enjoyed myself, and gradually you build technique, and then in the first companies that I worked in as a young man, I moderated company events, and I got better and better, and then eventually bigger and bigger conferences, evenings, charity events.
Yeah. So what's your most dreaded nightmare as a speaker? You know, like you stand there, right? So what was your first experience like, by the way?
Before the big shows, when I was responsible for also selling the shows, I was moderating them, but I was also selling seats. I had this recurring nightmare of my dad sitting in front row and no one else was there. And he'd sort of shake his head at my life choices. And this was a recurring nightmare I had for like the first 5 years of doing this. Dad was in the front row most of the time, but he didn't shake his head, and there was lots of people behind him. And so that one was one. But then also I've slipped and fallen over, and turned that into a fantastic recovery, if I may say so.
Well, going up the stage?
Going like a long stage, like a long walk. The walk on music was timed. I was behind coming up and then had to rush a little bit, and there was a little bit of water from a performance before, and I slipped on these and went into sort of a proper bum slide. I've dropped the microphone and it broke. I have announced the wrong people. I have had people on stage with me who were really difficult to interview, who would give you one-syllable answers. Like, yes, that's how you could see it, or no, I don't think so. And so if nothing comes, you know this as an interviewer, right? So if I didn't, I react. But if I didn't, if you asked me something about my high school, when did you decide something? I said, yeah, when I finished high school. So there's nothing to go on, right? So I've had these characters, and so these are tough, and you kind of have to. There are moments when you then have to lean into the audience and hope for them to rescue you. Like you're hoping that they sympathize with you, and yes, they see you, and they help you out.
Right.
Yeah. Same happens with when you've got someone who's drunk and disorderly in a crowd. So they start shouting something at you, and most of the time, actually, the crowd sorts them out.
Oh.
So you don't really have to do much. You can just you sweat a little bit.
Right.
But within a minute or two, the crowd will sort of tell them to be quiet.
Okay.
So, but I'm sure I'll have some this year as well. I'll send you a note when I've done my next gaffe. So.
So do you find yourself getting away with humor? Like when you tripped and fell? Like, I've just pretended I've fainted so they can come carry me out. How do you recover from that?
So I have a good way of getting up. So I can get up sort of without sort of like just from a seating position by like a matrix way, like whoop. And so I got up like that and said like, I've always wanted to do that. And then I limped forward into the spotlight because I had a limp because I hurt my knee. So, so yeah. So, but I mean,
you're brave.
This stuff happens all the time. So.
You're brave, but maybe it's easier for a guy, because for a girl, if you do that and something tears or you stain your dress or you just fall in a very like unfashionable way.
I think though, whether boy or girl, I think we need to own that. So because when we fall, there's nothing we can do, right? So it's done. We're going to look stupid either way, and trying not to look stupid is not going to work.
It makes it
right?
worse.
So just own it. Just be like, here I am. This happened. Like,
God,
I woke up like this.
Never happened to me.
And with your shoes,
this is
kudos.
nothing. This is 1 inch. This is like the normal height. So
but
the 10 inches are.
But they're terrific shoes. You do wear 10 inches as well.
No, I don't.
Okay.
The ones who do that, maybe they need the height. I actually don't.
Okay.
So I do the one.
Yeah. No, I have so much respect for people wearing heels in any kind of stage position. Like, if I'm on my feet all day, I mean, my feet get tired. I have comfortable shoes. It's part of the whole thing.
Okay, so we have to take a quick break, commercial break. Do you want to have something? Well, we have nothing to have. We'll have air burgers or a beverage as we take a break, because Millicent didn't remember to serve us anything.
Let's play Millicent. I like that.
Yeah, it's Millicent and Marion. I mean, like, seriously.
We have a saying in my country, may you always find water and shade.
Oh, I like that.
Because it's very hot in Madagascar.
May you always find water and shade. It sounds like a very powerful blessing.
It is a greeting.
We need to take a break and bless people. Like, we're just taking a break, then we come back. So.
Fantastic. Let's bless ourselves.
No,
water
as in
then.
you just said. You tell them.
May you always find water and shade.
Awesome. We are back after the break.
Indeed. So your certainty doesn't require third-party approval. Right? So your certainty doesn't require, or opinion for that matter, right? So the interesting thing that I've come across in life is that you are very rarely criticized by people more successful than you.
Welcome back to the program. It's What's Your Story? I'm Catherine Mwangi. We're having a conversation with Harry Christian Henry. So, what have we established so far in part 1? That he grew up, yes, in this loving family, in as much as his mom passed on when she gave birth to him, but he never lacked in any way because he got a bonus family. Let's put it like that. That would be a good way to put it.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
And he's an entrepreneur, artpreneur, so you've heard about dancing. He says he can't dance, but I don't believe him. I think he's lying to me because he didn't want me to have him stand up and show us something. And his passion now is sustainability in organizations, people as well, actually, because we always focus on organizational sustainability.
Yeah.
But I have always maintained, and I haven't actually had anybody to have this conversation with, like, also from a human being perspective.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, sustainability is so poorly defined, right? So for most people, it just means that there's no waste or something like that, or nature. But for instance, if you go into medical professions, when you talk about sustainability with them, it's about sustaining life, right? So sustainability in waste comes second to sustaining life. And like you say, I mean, there is no sustainability without people. And for me, it's very much about empowering people to be self-sufficient.
Yes, and do that sustainably, right?
That's a much better use of sustainability, yes.
Yes. Thankfully, at least we see eye to eye on that, because I've always said, fine, I adopt this into my life, but how sustainable is it? And you find most of the time, circumstances especially have this way of just getting us discouraged, demotivated, and we move away from that. So how, especially in your case, moving from country to country, serving in different spaces and industry, how have you been able to, and I know I heard you say you're an optimist, which is great, but you also have had to face times and seasons when there's nothing to be optimistic about, where you had to look for where's the light in this matter, this situation?
I think that's a really powerful way of putting it, right? There are moments in everyone's life, in every company's life, every organization's time where you just can't see where the light is going to come from, right? And I think for me, I've developed over the years a really strong daily process.
Okay.
So I'm not very organized by nature. I'm more of a creative butterfly who gets inspiration and wants to riff on that idea.
Yeah.
And so I have to have a really rigorous process for myself so that I don't get into those ruts. I mean, if you watch news all day, then you see what happens to your mental health, right?
Yeah.
So it has I start everything with exercise every morning, and then I meditate for a moment, and I write out a plan. And I follow through on that, and I have just 2 to 3 things that I need to do per day, and I call them my must-win battles. And the way
you call them what?
My must-win battles.
Must-win battles. Okay.
Yes, and the way I define them is that if everything else goes to hell today, if I can't go somewhere, if everything else goes wrong, and I do these 2 things, will it have been a good day? And so when you follow through with that and you do like 300 days a year, and then you end up having a pretty optimistic life, because even when things go wrong, you still did your exercise, or you still called your mother, or you still, whatever you defined, you still worked on your book for a little bit, even if it wasn't only a little bit.
Wow, must-win battles. I like that. I really like that, because also it also helps you manage your expectations.
Yeah.
And also something you said in part 1 of the show, okay, I was laughing about it, when you fell on stage and you said to me, but you own it, you have to own it.
Yeah.
So, and then you've repeated something more or less like that now. So I'm seeing exactly what you mean, because it's a process and you trust the process.
Yeah, and it's accountability. I mean, you need to be like, this narrative of I can't do something because of the government, because of this, because of that, is not helpful.
Yeah.
Because if I only see the things that I can't do because of outside influence, then when am I focusing on the things that I can influence? And I need to work on the things that I can actually influence. Otherwise, I'm not going anywhere, right?
Right. It took me a long time to accept that governments will never, ever, ever do for me what it is I want to do for me. But ultimately, where there's a will, there's a way, no?
Yeah, and I think it's true for all of the outside world, not just the government, right? Just like you say, I mean, only you know what you need and want, and only you can determine that path. Of course, you're going to enlist help on the way, right? You need a team, you need a good team.
Yeah.
But no one's going to come to save us, right? We need to start saving ourselves.
Yes.
That's how life works.
Yeah. The first time I had that statement was from a guest I had here from South Africa, and she just said, no one is coming to save you. And she was sharing her story. And then she said it, it just hit. And I'm like, wow, yeah, no one is actually coming to save me. So then what do I have to do so that I never have to be in a position where I feel like I'm expecting Harry to save me, Millicent to save me? So what are those things we need to put in place as individuals where we have to kill the reliance on others and turn the focus inwards?
That's a really good one. I think the first one is the personal resilience, and that of course takes a long time to build. I mean, you see that from young people, especially. You see everyone posting on social media, I no longer care about what other people think. Well, obviously you do care, because otherwise you wouldn't have posted that, right? So I always say to my pupils as well, so your certainty doesn't require third-party approval. Right? So your certainty doesn't require their approval or opinion, for that matter, right?
Yeah.
So the interesting thing that I've come across in life is that you are very rarely criticized by people more successful than you. It's really interesting. You're criticized by people who are on the same level or are not getting anywhere, and misery loves company, as we say. And so one of the things is to get really focused on the things that you want to do, and to know that even if the naysayers are right and it goes wrong, you will have learned so much more along the way, and you won't die thinking, when I wish I had tried that. Than the people who don't ever try anything. So I think that personal resilience is the first one. I think then the other one is we need to be really careful about who we let into our lives. When we're grown-ups, we don't have that much time to spend, and we always have these old friends and people who kind of suck us dry of energy and ask us for help and then do the exact opposite. And I just, it's really harsh in a way, because I like people, but I do rain check people a lot, and I do well, not rain check, but I just don't have time. I can't justify it to myself, because if I'm spending time with you, then I'm not spending time with the other person, and if that person is my business partner or my loved one, then I'm doing everyone a disservice. So I think that's the other key.
So getting rid of energy suckers, I call
Yeah,
it.
for sure. Yeah.
So how have you been able to these are two-pronged questions, so let me just maybe ask the first part. Like, build businesses. You have been in different spaces, so no one can say, oh, you're an engineer, right?
Yeah.
So you basically, there are no boxes around you.
Working in packaging manufacturing, working in consulting, things like that, they taught me very valuable skills, and I was lucky enough to be able to sort of shift inside the job in a way that it suited my strengths, right? So when I was in manufacturing, I had something to do with supply chain at first. I'm not great with details. And I ended up in marketing and sustainability, which gives me much more stage time, for example, which gives me much more around sustainability. So you're often, when you've got the willpower and the skill set, you're able to shift even inside a box into the end of the box. So you're reshaping the box to a box that you like, at least for a period of time. And then in time, for me, came the time to say, okay, I've put together all my little boxes. They're now my building blocks. I've learned from all of them. I'm going to put them together and build my own.
Yeah.
And that's the phase that I'm now in. So I went and I bought a small software company because I've done the startup thing, and it's horrible because you have so much to start. You've got legal stuff. You need to set up a company. You waste so much time before you actually get to work. And so I said to myself, for that next phase, I'm going to take something established, so I don't have to go through is this website available? Can I have this email? And so, and that was my starting point. So I started at a higher level there.
Okay.
And now I'm very much in my comfort zone, because now I'm a chairman, so I float a little bit above the daily operations most of the time. I only do 3 things. People tell me I do too many. Depending on who you are. If you're my mom, you say I do too many things. Other people say it's confusing, I do so many things.
Yeah.
I don't really. I only do 3 things.
Which
I
are?
build business.
Okay.
I talk about how I build business.
Okay.
And then, because I have context of building business, I go to conferences or events where I'm a superior moderator, because I have the business context. So build, talk about it. Sometimes that means coaching, right? So other business leaders who want to be more entrepreneurial or whatnot. And then on occasion indulge in the festivities around business. But it really all interlocks. It's really all the same thing.
So tell me about the risk you took about 8 years ago when you left Helsinki to go to the UK with no plan.
Well, no plan is perhaps a bit harsh, but so one has to know London is twice the size of Finland, not just Helsinki, but Finland. So London alone is twice the size of the country of Finland, and economically more than that, right? So and I needed that. I felt a little bit, and no disrespect to my friends in Finland. I love Finland the most. Everyone knows that I have a Finnish passport, but I felt like a big odd parrotfish in a small pond. And so I wanted to go somewhere where there's more parrotfish and where there's more ocean to swim in. And so I went to London, which has a really high level when it comes to services. And I went into consulting, and I was out after 10 weeks. It was an absolutely horrifying experience. It was so bad. It shows up nowhere on my CV. I've cut that from my life. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it gave me a completely different perspective on things. Okay. But it was a terrible experience. And then all of a sudden, you've been doing this for a long time, and when your confidence gets shot, this happens to everyone at some stage of their lives, right? So maybe you can relate. my confidence was shot, and I thought, like, I can't do this. I'm not good enough. I was Helsinki good, but I'm not London good. And so it took me a good while to recover and dig my way out of that hole. And I took a strange route. So instead of looking for more jobs, I actually went to Silicon Valley. And I just traveled around and I called head offices of famous entrepreneurs and said, can I sit down for a coffee, 15 minutes? And I didn't try to couch it as something else than what it was, like, I can be of service to you, or can I work for you for free, which is taking up people's time. I was upfront. I said, look, I'm changing what I do. I want to have a big impact. Can I talk to someone? And so I ended up going around and learning a lot of interesting things. And I came back and I dug my way out of that hole. Was broke by that time, of course, because I hadn't worked for a while. And then we restarted, and I restarted building my own company, and I worked in a really great consultancy in Oakland in London for a while. A really great relationship continues to this day. And then from there, something really odd happened. And I thought to myself at that stage, I'll never work for anyone again. Never say never.
Okay.
I said never again, because I've got my own companies, I've got the dance business, everything's interesting. And then someone came along and said, I run one of the biggest plastic packaging companies. As CEO, and I said, well, that's not that sexy, is it? and that CEO is very inspiring, and he so invited me in and said, like, well, do you want to come and change the whole business, like, because no one likes plastics at the moment. So my CEO then said, we need to write a strategy that is so bold that everyone will listen, and it needs to be carbon neutral in 5 years in plastic packaging. And I said, well, I wasn't going to work for anyone anymore, but this is so big that if we actually figure this out, even if we don't do it, but we figure out how, this is a game changer for so many people and for me personally as well. So we sat down, and 18 months later we knew how. And so I worked for someone else again, and then I stepped out, and now I'm my own man. But of course, that history that I have with sustainability in manufacturing. So these are the kind of things that still follows me, and that's why that feeds into my entrepreneurial journey now.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow. Okay. So tell me about Empower Motion. That's your company.
So that's the one that I usually talk about the least. So so it's my coaching company.
Yeah.
And I had some really exciting times on stage years ago. My biggest audience was 2,600 people, right? And so I'm vibing on stage, and I've got my crowd, and the average crowd would have been around 200. And people pay for a day and a half, and we go through personal effectiveness, we go through how to prioritize time management, better habits, right? Bulletproof Habits is still a bestseller in Kenya, more so than in Europe. And so we did that, and it was great, and everyone had a great time. I had a great time, they had a great time. And then what dawned on me during the pandemic was that, unfortunately, people have a great time, but they don't really change their habits that much.
Right.
And that's for two reasons. One is that when we're enjoying ourselves, most of the time we only hear the things we already know that resonate with us, not the things that tickle us the wrong way, where we should be listening. We listen to what we already know. And the other thing is, it takes 21 days to build a habit, which by now everyone knows, but the one that's less talked about is it takes 60 to 70 days not to lose a habit.
Oh.
And so that's why you can go to the gym after New Year's, people make a promise, then they go for a month, then they get sick because it's the winter, and then they never go back, because the habit actually takes much longer to form. And so I said to my colleagues, really, this coaching that we're doing, that's more for our egos than making societal change happen. So what we need to do is, we really need to find a way to have 10 weeks, which is 70 days, so that the habits get embedded as part of that over time. So we have habit transformation. So we changed the concept into the Empower Motion concept as it's known today, which is 2 hours per week for 10 weeks with one reading week in between, just to stretch it to 11. And we do 2 hours, we do key habits. People commit with each other to do them for a week, then feedback, and then go again. And we've had fantastic results, and we always have Kenyans and Tanzanians in as well. Each cohort, we're now on cohort 18.
18?
18, we've done 18 cohorts in a row.
Yeah.
And it's transformed. I always say I'm not going to do it anymore because I don't really have the time, but then people come back and say, like, look, I've done this, I used the methodology, I've achieved this now in life. I'm like, fine, one more. Yeah.
Let's talk about your family. So your wife is your rock.
Of course, of course. I've got my 2 boys, 2 little ones, 1 and 3.
Okay.
And so wife's an entrepreneur as well. But we have very separate paths.
Right.
So I'm here and she's in London, and I love my boys to bits, and I try to be a modern father. I grew up in Finland, so I do a lot with the boys. There's nothing I can't do that she can do aside from breastfeeding, of course. But I can take them to bed just as easily, and so on. So now when I'm here, I send little videos to the older one, and when he's very sad, there's a treasure hunt video. So I've hidden a little bit of chocolate somewhere in the house, and he'll go on a treasure hunt to find it and makes him happy. And so and scarily, my oldest son looks exactly like me at the same age. so that's all you need, a younger, cuter version of yourself, right? But yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I went all in on my entrepreneurial journey was that I want to leave something behind. And by that, I don't necessarily mean funds. I mean a legacy of doing things in a certain way, a legacy of having an impact, a legacy of having done something meaningful that my sons can be proud of one day.
Yeah. So what are some of the values or ethos you've had to adopt and grow, like you had to grow into something, whether it's the discipline, whether it's the, the habits? Everything?
Yeah, everything. So I think I have my parents to thank for that. So I don't think I would have done well in school if my parents hadn't insisted, right? So I didn't have the discipline back then. So I was good at the things that I liked, and I was terrible at the other things. But in a school environment, if you're not at least moderate at the things that you're bad at, you kind of repeat. You stay in school or you drop out, all right? So that wasn't good. So, and then the other thing is so time management. We talk about time management a lot. Time management is actually not a thing. Time doesn't exist. It's an abstract construct made up by man. Therefore, we all have the same amount of time. I joke, of course, but really what we need to talk about is priorities management, right?
Okay.
So being able to figure out that I can't do something just because it's urgent if it's not important. Sometimes I need to take it on the chin that the urgent thing doesn't get done because I'm working on something that's not so urgent but is so much more important. So I have a really concrete example. So I at the moment, I've been speeding somewhere. So I have a fine.
Okay.
So I need to deal with the fine. And yesterday I was going to deal with the fine, but it takes really long to find all the information that I need. And the other thing that I'm doing at the moment is I'm buying a company.
Okay.
That's important. The other one's urgent. Now, previous me would have spent 2 hours on dealing with the fine, where the risk with the fine is just that the fine goes up by 50%. Now me complains about the fine while working with the lawyers and buying the company, because that has generational implications. That has implications that are really far-reaching, when the other thing only has implications right now. And I think as most people are not very good at identifying what is a big priority in my life, aside from the obvious, like the boss said, and family. But for your own goals, right? Your boss's goals are not your only goals.
Yeah.
So what about your other big goals?
Yes.
Like starting your own vineyard, for example. Some people have that goal. You need to plan really long term, right? It's a really long journey. You need to get started. And if you always push it out until retirement, that's what my parents thought. They can do so much once they retire. Now they have 11 grandchildren. They get around to nothing.
Their
right?
lives
So
are full.
They have no time whatsoever. The busiest people I know. Right? 'Cause they need to treat everyone equally, so they need to go to everyone's house enough. So they're super busy now.
But they enjoy it, of course.
I'd like to think so, yes.
Your final words to young people, looking at the camera.
My final words to young people.
Before you come here again.
Yeah, it's great to be young because you can take risks, you can try things, and especially if you're academically trained in this part of the world, but also same is true in Europe as well. You might feel disillusioned because you've been told that you're going to go to uni, then you're going to spend extra money on a master's, then you're going to come out and you're going to find a job. And then if you don't, that doesn't feel great. Fear not. On average, you have to write almost 100 applications to get a job nowadays. So if you've written 30, you've done about a third of the work. So keep at it, be tenacious, keep at it, knock on doors, be proactive, and do your own thing. Like work out what your dream is and work towards that.
They want to reach you? Are you reachable?
Yes. My favorite place to be reached, Harry Christian Henry is my name, Harry Henry in short, is LinkedIn. That's my favorite. That's where I connect, and I'm over communicative, so I actually do respond to everyone, even though it takes me some time to get around to it. I'm also Harry Henry on Instagram, where there's more of my sort of personal life and light and dark and things that didn't work and things that work. And I'm also Harry Henry on TikTok, which is unexplored for me.
Oh, you're on TikTok as well?
I am on TikTok.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So happy you came. Yeah, at least now I thank you. Let me not say a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What was that phrase again? May the shade and water.
May you always find shade and water.
Yes.
May you all always find shade and water.
Yeah.
You have so much water and shade in Nairobi this week. It's annoying me. I would have wanted some sun.
Okay, so we say goodbye. He's annoyed that Nairobi doesn't have a whatever, but we say goodbye. Thank you for watching. Reach him. I've always said these guests are accessible and available. So LinkedIn, you heard, is where he's active. He'll answer you himself. I'm glad you've watched. If you have questions, 22151 is our SMS line. Let us know what they are. If they're personal to him, send them to his LinkedIn, account page. If you're not on LinkedIn, then send them to our SMS line, and then we'll just forward that to him. And the show repeats Sunday 2 p.m. and goes right up on YouTube after this. Thank you to everybody who's been live streaming both on Facebook and YouTube tonight. We are grateful for your support, and we say, may you never lack shade and water.
That's a really nice way to put it as well.
What is the original?
May you always find shade and water.
That's better, because there's no lack in that statement. So may you always find shade and water. That I will always use that line. Millicent, I hope you've written it. Ciao.
Gem Suites Hotel and Luxury Serviced Apartments currently boasts 2 properties within Kenya. Gem Suites State House Crescent, set in the exclusive State House neighborhood, comprises of 34 well-appointed apartments, and Gem Suites Riverside, set up in a secure, private and tranquil setting in the upscale Riverside neighborhood with 98 luxuriously appointed full-service 1- and 2-bedroom apartments, superior hotel rooms and presidential penthouses.